the Catholic idea that condom use is somehow immoral. And this is a genuinely ludicrous idea. I can assure you that the powers of the human brain are insufficient to provide a good argument for this. But map this onto sub-Saharan Africa, where literally millions, something like 4 million people, die each year from the spread of AIDS. And what you have there are Catholic ministers literally preaching the sinfulness of condom use in villages where the only information about condom use is the representation of the ministry.
Wow. I mean, the way that Sam just laid that out was so... God, millions of people dying from it. Sam Harris's all-time most powerful critique of religion. Ladies and gentlemen, a Dose of Reason YouTube channel. Sam Harris is a calm, precise thinker who says what he means and means what he says. Let's see what he says and hear what he means.
I'm going to talk to you tonight about belief, specifically the problem of religious belief. Our world has been balkanized into separate moral communities. We have Christians against Muslims, against Jews. The majority of people on this planet at the moment organize their lives around a founding proposition that God wrote one of their books. We have many of these books on hand. They make genuinely incompatible claims about the nature of this universe, about the disposition of certain real estate in the Middle East. We have the marriage of quite literally first century or earlier beliefs, literally Iron Age philosophy, with 21st century destructive technology. This on its face should seem untenable to us. I want to bring back this notion of psychopathy because it now strikes me as even more relevant than I thought. So this idea that morality comes merely from the mere issuance of a competent authority. One of the features of psychopathy is an inability to distinguish true moral precepts that relate to the well-being of people and things that merely issue from a competent authority. So if you ask children sitting in a classroom, is it okay to drink a soda in class if the teacher gives you permission? Most of them will say yes. If you ask them, is it okay to punch your neighbor in the face if the teacher gives you permission? They immediately recognize the distinction between a moral infraction and a mere conventional rule. And this is very young children. But children at risk for psychopathy don't. Children at risk for psychopathy think that rules are just given by an authority. So if a teacher tells you can punch a child in the face, you can punch a child in the face. This is, again...
And even then, if you take it a step further, most children you'd have to push to make them behave that way. You'd have to tell them they must do this. They must. That's the enemy. You know, you'd have to force them, in a sense, coerce them to do that thing. Most children would not want to. They'd cry before they'd want to do that. And then, of course, if you can train them up to be numb to those behaviors, then yeah, that's where you start getting atrocities in the name of, I was told this was God, you know. And then, of course, you could justify by looking at a book, right?
I'm not accusing religious people in general of being psychopaths, but there's a psychopathic core to this moral worldview. This divine command theory that Dr. Craig is advocating suggests that if God only tells you to sacrifice your firstborn son, it is good to do it.
Like, literally, I don't know a single person who would justify... there might be some Christians. I'm sure there's some really dumb online people who would try to go, no, if God told me to kill my son, I would. You know, and they might be just doing that to show face. But in reality, behind social media, because a lot of this is facade that we see put online, I don't think many people would really sincerely do that to their children if they heard a voice in their head, unless they really were nuts. And there have been people who've done that. But again, you're reading a text that has that as its central theology. God tells someone to sacrifice his son, and he almost does it. And all the trauma involved. Oh, no, it's cool. I replaced it with a ram. What?
That's where goodness comes from. And so you got people waking up in trailer parks all over America, suffering some form of mental illness that's destabilized them and made them vulnerable to this way of thinking. And there are people who kill their children thinking they're Abraham, who just didn't get interrupted by an angel. And this is the kind of morality that you get out of a divine command theory that, again, offers no retort to the jihadist other than, sorry, Buster, you happen to have the wrong God.
That's facts. That was a great debate. Sam Harris did good. William Lane Craig is a great communicator and salesman, but Sam really did stick it to him.
The first thing to say up front is just that religious moderation is better than fundamentalism. There's no doubt about that. Religious moderates don't fly planes into buildings. Religious moderates don't organize their lives around apocalyptic prophecy, and that's a very good thing. But religious moderation has some real problems. The first is that it gives cover to fundamentalism. Because religious moderates have made it taboo to criticize faith. They want faith respected. They want the whole project of being religious, being identified as a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew.
I have to tell you, this is true, because when I was criticizing Islam for a long time and had ex-Muslims come on, a lot of Muslims that were more moderate would come on and they go, they are not representing true Islam. Stop being so critical. Stop acting like this is what Islam seems to teach, or these are teachings of Islam. And it's like, well, why is it that you're a minority overall in the grand scheme of Islam? Or at least you're not really there's a huge portion of the population of Muslims that think this is good. And you're the one who's saying, no, that they don't represent Islam. And they just try to suppress you from being critical of the overall system. And it's like, no, you need to be critical of any and all religions that cause these kind of behaviors and can be problematic. And if you're not allowed to do that because, well, there's moderates who identify under the label Muslim or Christian or whatever, then no. That should not be okay. Because then, again, you're stopping your criticisms, but then there's all these bad people. Who's allowed to criticize? Only those within the faith are allowed to criticize other people of that faith?
To be respected. That it is impossible to call into question this basic project, the ethical tenability of raising a child to believe he's a Christian as opposed to anything else. And under the cover of this respect, we are now powerless to say the very harsh and necessary things about religious extremism that we need to say, because it is taboo. You have to respect faith.
Yeah.
Religious moderation prevents us from even noticing the differences among our religions. It is taboo to notice that all our religions are not teaching the same thing. They're not all equally wise, and where they do teach the same thing, they don't teach it equally well. I mean, where are the Tibetan Buddhist suicide bombers?
You got a point.
If you think for a moment that the kind of violence we see in the Muslim world is born of the Israeli occupation and our misadventures in Iraq, we should see Tibetan Buddhist suicide bombers. The Tibetans have suffered an occupation every bit as brutal and far more cynical than any that we or the British or the Israelis have imposed upon the Muslim world. Something like 1.2 million Tibetans have died since the Chinese occupation. Where are the throngs of Tibetans in the streets calling for the deaths of Chinese non-combatants? Where are the Tibetans blowing themselves up on Chinese buses at weddings, in crowds of children, in front of the offices of the Red Cross and the UN? It's not happening. It's not likely to happen.
I have a lot of appreciation for Eastern philosophy, and I get why Sam does too. There's a lot of peace. And not just through words, but through their actions. There's so much peace that we often see from monks, from Buddhists, from various Eastern philosophies that they don't, I haven't seen, at least, it has not been my experience to see them as violent as we have with more Western style, or even, Islam, the Abrahamic faiths and such.
It's not that you could not possibly form a death cult out of the principles of Tibetan Buddhism. In fact, to some degree, Zen Buddhism informed the worldview of the kamikaze pilots during World War II.
I'm glad he brought that up, because I was thinking about that earlier when he mentioned Tibetan Buddhists. I'm like, yeah, but what about Japanese kamikaze fighters? I know they were religious. They were obviously honoring and national Japanese soldiers doing this. But let's see what he says.
But you would have to work very hard to bend the core principles of Buddhism into this kind of orgy of violence. You don't have to work so hard as a Muslim.
True. You have, if you were really following Jesus's words about what he says to do, how to behave, and self-sacrifice and stuff, like in the sense of like take the punishment, become martyr, like, then yeah, you. But the thing is, the bending of what has been interpreted as the New Testament, that's been bent back when Augustine and others found ways to justify war, and the Christian empires that be way back in Constantine's time onward, like found ways to make it work. And so Christians have inherited that kind of thing. So you find this with, Judaism, you find this with the Abrahamic faiths, honestly, all three.
And it would be impossible as a Jain. I mean, the Jains, this religion of India that has some 10 million subscribers, I think, the core of their religion is nonviolence. No matter how deranged you get by your doctrine as a Jain, you will get less and less violent. I mean, the really religious Jains cover their mouths with cheesecloth so they don't inhale a bug. By no stretch of the imagination can you argue that the core principle of Islam is nonviolence.
I mean, he's got a point. I ain't gonna lie. He's got a point. There is a lot of that. And the fact that there was a conquest right out the gate, and there's all sorts of other stuff. There's got to be more to that, right? Wouldn't you say?
It is taboo to notice this. And it is especially taboo among religious moderates. Our own religious demagogues will notice this. We can have, Franklin Graham will stand up and say, Islam is an evil religion. They'll notice the differences between religions. Everyone else has the wrong religion. But religious moderates have rendered this taboo. First, let's start with this claim that any one of our religions is true. There are at least two problems with taking this path. The first is they can't all be true. I mean, this is something that Bertrand Russell pointed out 100 years ago. Even if we knew that one of our religions was perfectly true, I mean, even if we knew this was God's multiple choice exam. Is it A, Judaism, B, Christianity, C, Islam? Even if we knew one was perfect, given the bewildering profusion of doctrines on offer, and given their mutual incompatibility, every believer should expect damnation purely as a matter of probability. Now it seems to me this should give religious people pause when they espouse their certainties. It never does, but it should. But the deeper problem with arguing for the truth of any religion is that the evidence for our religions is either non-existent or terrible. And this subsumes all claims about the existence of a personal God, the divine origin of certain books, the virgin birth of certain people,
like the certain virgins of certain people,
veracity of ancient miracles. I mean, take Christianity as an example. Christianity is founded on the claim that the gospel account of the miracles of Jesus is true. There are certain Christians that may want to hedge their bet here, but most Christians, most of the time, take some complement of these miracles as true. And most important, it seems to be the resurrection. Mm-hmm. Now, the problem with this is that the only thing that testifies to these miracles ever having occurred is the gospel. There's no extra biblical description of these events. Everyone agrees that the gospels were written decades after the events they report, the earliest gospels. The problem is that even if the evidence were much better than that, even if we had hundreds of contemporaneous eyewitness accounts of these miracles, that would still not be good enough evidence to cash out the claims of Christianity. Why not? Well, the problem is that in the 21st century, reports of miracles are still quite common. I have met literally hundreds of Western-educated men and women who think that their favorite Hindu or Buddhist guru has magic powers. I mean, these are the reports of miracles are quite current. There are Hindu yogis and mystics who reportedly walk on water and raise the dead and fly without the aid of technology and read minds and divine the future. You take someone like Satya Sai Baba, the South Indian guru. All of these miracles are attributed to him. He even claims to have been born of a virgin, which incidentally is not such a rare claim in the history of religion or in history generally. Genghis Khan was supposedly born of a virgin. Alexander the Great was born of a virgin. Parthenogenesis does not guarantee that you're going to turn the other cheek, apparently. So consider this. Satya Sai Baba has these miracles attributed to him by literally thousands upon thousands of living eyewitnesses. He is not the David Koresh of Hinduism. His devotees threw a birthday party for him a few years ago, and 1 million people showed up.
Wow.
There are millions of people who believe he is a living God. Now, so consider, as though for the first time, the foundational claim of Christianity. The claim is that miracle stories of a sort that surround...
By the way, I love hearing about Eastern living cults like this. Just shows the same software is working in our minds as humans as it was in the first century.
Around a person like Satya Sai Baba today, and which are compelling to no one apart from his devotees, suddenly become especially credible if you place them in the pre-scientific religious context of the first century Roman Empire, decades after their supposed occurrence. So Satya Sai Baba's miracles don't even merit an hour on the Discovery Channel. And yet, place these miracles in an ancient text, and half the people on this earth think it a legitimate project to organize their lives around them.
So I don't think it's half, but that's a bit exaggerated, but it's still a massive amount. We're talking over a quarter of the planet Earth identifies as Christian. So at least 1/4 of the entire planet's population is Christian, if not more.
Does anyone else see a problem with that? Or take another belief that really this should just be a curiosity to us until you see its consequences in the world. That the Catholic idea that condom use is somehow immoral. This is a genuinely ludicrous idea. I can assure you that the powers of the human brain are insufficient to provide a good argument for this. But map this onto sub-Saharan Africa, where literally millions, something like 3.5, 4 million people, die each year from the spread of AIDS. And what you have there are Catholic ministers literally preaching the sinfulness of condom use in villages where the only information about condom use is the representation of the ministry.
Wow. I mean, the way that Sam just laid that out was so... God, millions of people dying from it. And they're a leading cause to the death of these millions because they're not helping them find ways to get away from these diseases.
Many people, and especially governments, promote condoms for preventing AIDS. This is a matter of deep concern for us in the Church. The bishops regard the widespread and indiscriminate promotion of condoms as an immoral and misguided weapon in our battle against HIV/AIDS.
How stupid.
It seems to me that the time for respecting beliefs of this sort is long past. This is genocidal stupidity. It is criminal negligence of a sort that we would not tolerate in any other institution. Yet the Vatican cannot be criticized to the degree that it should, because it's the Vatican, and there is a overarching taboo around criticizing religious faith.
Jeez.
We've all assimilated this idea that we should respect other people's religious beliefs. Your neighbor has the right to believe whatever he wants to about God and the moral structure to this universe. He has the right to believe whatever he wants to about what happens after death, and you should respect these beliefs merely because he believes them. Where else in our discourse do we play by these rules? When was the last time anyone in this room was admonished to respect another person's beliefs about history or geography or engineering or medicine? We do not respect people's beliefs. We evaluate their reasons. If my reasons are good enough, you will helplessly believe what I believe. That is what it is to be a rational human being. Reasons are contagious.
This is good. This is good.
If I came on the stage and said that the Holocaust never happened, you would be under no burden whatsoever to respect my beliefs. And we don't respect the beliefs of people who think Elvis is still alive. I mean, the people who make all those crazy pilgrimages to Graceland. These people do not get invited to sit on our boards of directors. They don't become presidents of universities. I mean, that is all well and good, except when you change the subject to God, and then all bets are off. Then the sky's the limit. You can be certain with zero evidence and respected for it. It is taboo to push the conversation into criticism of your beliefs.
If you'd like to support me in creating more of...
Check out this YouTube channel here. I really appreciate this. The YouTube channel is A Dose of Reason. Link will be in the description. Go subscribe to their channel. Thank you for letting me react to this, and I hope you've enjoyed this reaction. Sam Harris is a very, very unique thinker. And I think what I like about him the most, while he's very sober and precise with his wording, is how gentle and calm he is, because every word he says counts. You know, when he says a thing, it's like the pauses in between his words, he wants you to see and hear what he just said. So you really know what he means. You know what he's talking about. You understand his point. He emphasizes that quite well. But he also does it in such a gentle manner that anyone should be able to hear and listen and take in what he's saying without feeling the hostility that usually can come from other people who might be a bit more charismatic in their approach. And I do appreciate that about Sam. Very smart guy. Thank you so much for being here in my reaction. I hope you'll subscribe to the YouTube channel, check that bell, and hit all. If you don't, YouTube won't recommend you every time I do a reaction. And it's like 90% of you watching haven't done that. So please do so. Like the video, share it on your social medias, and drop a comment on what you thought was the best thing he said in this video. There was a lot there, but really what got me the most, I feel, was the whole condom use thing. But there was so much other stuff too. Just amazing information. I look forward to the next video, and I'll see you there. Thanks.